talk to. Yeah.
Great, excellent. Well, welcome everyone to our panel, Growing Greatness, How the Arts Can Instill Confidence in Creative Aging. Hannah and I have been wanting to do a panel like this for so long because we have such amazing, interesting conversations in our office. And we always have talked about doing this and really combining our art forms and our talents to have a discussion that's arts related. So thank you all for being a part of it. We're really excited to start this panel off. This panel is going to be done in 3-week sessions. So we're going to cover the topic today that we're covering as technique versus talent, or talent versus technique, and applying techniques to your instrument. And when we refer to instrument, we mean our artistic bodies, our minds, our bodies, our emotions. All of that goes into our art form when we are thinking of dance and acting. And the next weeks we'll follow up with some other interesting topics. Week 2 is going to be the urge to compare and judge, which I think is something that a lot of us face just as human beings, but as artists, it's, a whole other level of that. And then week 3 is going to be keeping confident from here on out. So how do we take what we've learned in the beginning 2-week sessions and even the 3rd week and really keep that confidence as we grow in our art form and take that with us. So we're going to start with talent and technique really quickly, because I know we all had introductions. We'll give a little brief introduction on ourselves, just for those that we don't know, members that are here. So my name is Kerri. I'm the drama teacher here at Lenox Hill Neighborhood House. I started in 2017 now, and it's been really fun and engaging to work with all the members at the Older Adult Center, but also I've worked at CASA, I worked at the Women's Shelter, I've worked with our after-school program with the children. Is there anything else I'm leaving out? I feel like we've done so many. The care program. Yeah. And I'll pass it to Hannah.
Yes, Hannah, obviously. I do the dance programming here. I've been here since 2019, so my 4 years is coming up. I've always just kind of had a focus for teaching and drifted to teaching, and I've just been in a classroom helping aid since I was 12, so it just feels very natural to me. And I'm very, working with older adults for the last 3.5 years has just been so eye-opening and transforming. And now I'm the biggest advocate for creative, what we're calling creative aging, which is not, I feel like, what the standard Western ideal of aging is. And how the arts is a tool that can really unlock a lot of creativity and confidence building with this growing community. So I'm excited to just chat about it.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and that can segue us right into talent. So we're going to talk a little bit about talent and before we get into technique. So talent, I always like to think of talent as our natural abilities. And one question that I like to ask is, when you were a child, was there something you were drawn to? Something you were drawn to. And you can all take a moment to kind of think about that. Was there anything you were drawn to when you were younger, and you weren't even sure why, or maybe another adult in your life told you about it, right? I know for myself, my mom and my grandmother used to tell me when I was 2, I would take books and lay them on the kitchen floor and act them out. So it wasn't even something I was aware of at that point, but it was something that was coming out at 2 years old that they were seeing. So take a moment to kind of think about that. And maybe as we talk about talent, some things will pop up for you that we can share during our question and answer session too. But natural abilities, I feel, are things that you're born with. They're a natural talent that you come into the world with. It's not something that is taught, it's something that's in you, right? And then what we think of is, maybe we don't discover it. Maybe we don't realize what a natural ability we have in something, right? Or maybe we fall into that area where we thought we had a natural ability in something as a child, and then an adult squashed it, right? I think I hear that a lot in classes where someone will come into an acting class and say, I love acting, but when I was in my kindergarten play, the teacher told me I couldn't sing and I wasn't good. And so I stopped doing it. And so all of a sudden we think about that. Is that some talent there that got squashed and stopped so that this child turned into adult that thought, I can't do this, even though I had this pull to do it as a child, right? So we can think of that sometimes coming in when we think of talent too.
Another thing too that I just thought of is most of the correlation that people have with the arts, or when you tell people that you're going into the arts, is they're like, so what are you going to do for your real job? I'm gonna
Yeah.
dance. And they're
Yeah.
like, well, what are you actually gonna do for your 9 to 5? And it's like, I'm going to dance. And so I think there is that connection with like, yes, you have a talent, but there's no way you're gonna make it just alone on art. It's not substantial enough. It's not validated enough. So that I just remember also too for me, like being in having talent in dance, going through my entire high school year. And even halfway through, I started college. I was going to do dance, and my junior year, my dad said, you know, you can change whenever you want. And I'm like, I'm 1 year away. Like, I'm not going to turn into an accounting major. Like, at what? Like, so there's still this constant pressure I feel that we have to, as artists, push back on and say that it's valid too.
Yes, and that's even something you can all reflect on now too. Was there ever a time where you spoke about something that you were wanting to do or driven to do, and someone kind of came in and gave you a reason why you shouldn't, right? And you sharing that story, I have a story similar to that with my own journey in the arts, being told to go to undergrad for something that I can make money in, right? And sure enough, I did that and minored in theater, and then I ended up going for my master's at the Actors Studio because it didn't go away just because someone asked me to do a different degree. It was still there, and I still had to let that talent out. And so I ended up going for my master's degree at the Actors Studio, and there's where my talent got to shine. And I did incredible in the program because I loved it. It was my passion. So the talent is something that we have in us, and sometimes it's not always accessible, or we don't know if it's accessible, right? So we might think that we don't have a talent when it pertains to the arts, right? And again, we gave some reasons why we might think that. Or it could also be, we mentioned other people, but it can be our own narrative that we give ourselves too, right? Especially when it comes to art. Oh, so-and-so does it better than I do it, so I don't have that gift, right? And we're going to get into that whole comparison in a few weeks, right? But that's another reason why our talent might also get stifled or shut down, because we're immediately telling ourselves we don't have it, even though we might feel it, right? So again, talent is one thing, technique is another. Talent can resonate in many ways with you, right? So it can be that it's instinctively or organically in you, right? So you might feel something. A lot of times I feel like a lot of people say this with music, right? I hear sometimes artists talk about how, oh, I didn't train on an instrument. I just picked up the guitar and taught myself. Or I sat at the piano and I started to pick up on some things, right? That's kind of that instinctiveness that comes up, right? There's just this ease or instinct that pops in with talent sometimes. The other thing is it can also feel challenging, right? Sometimes we can have a talent and we think, oh, it's challenging. I'm not quite sure how to get this out, right? Think about writers with writer's block, right? You hear that term a lot where a writer's saying, oh, I know what I need to get out, but I can't get it out on paper. Right. So writer's block is something else that can come up with the talent. So the talent's there, and it's how do we get this talent out, right? Or how do we acknowledge this talent? But I do believe that even if you think that you don't have a talent in the arts, I really believe as an art teacher that everyone has some ability in the art form, right? And it's just a matter of kind of honing into which one is the one that resonates the most with you, that feels organic, instinctual, or there's some sort of draw to it. And you can think about this too for a little while and reflect on it. Is there something you were drawn to do? I know, Ron, we've had conversations about that, right? What's something that you've been drawn to do that maybe you didn't do earlier in life, but it's something that's within you now to do? That's talent. That's talent coming through and saying, hey, let me out, right? I want to play. Like, let me out. I've been sitting in here. It can also resonate as a love or passion to watch something, right? Sometimes talent can come out in just like that desire to watch, film and TV, right? To teach, right? Sometimes the talent comes out in that form where it's not so much actively doing it, but there's this talent that wants to come out with teaching. Or it can just be something fun to do and it makes you feel good. When you tap into the talent, you feel good. It gives you something. That's when you know you're using that talent in you. It feels nice to be able to use it. Often we don't recognize our talent or the depths of our talent until we explore it in a class setting with a teacher, right? And then what we end up seeing is by studying techniques, something happens with our talent. And I'm going to pass it over to Hannah to get into the techniques, applying it to talent.
So we wanted to discuss the difference between talent and technique because we feel that that noticing the difference between talent and technique is a way, again, to help navigate that urge to compare and the reason to compare. So somebody having natural talent and being able to run very fast, right? Like you may not be a fast runner naturally, but if you use the right techniques, you can be just as fast as that person. You just have to work a little bit harder at it. So what technique offers is that codified scaffolding structure, right? So like a technique is something that has a name. In ballet, we have Vaganova technique. It's a technique that the Russians use that create these incredibly flexible and spider-like dancers, right? Balanchine has a technique. Martha Graham has technique. That's a technical term. There are names for things that you enter in as a dancer, and as you move up through that program, as you move through that technique, you become this professional in that sense. The same way that Kerri, I love the technique. I love Meisner technique. I think it's super fun. So Meisner technique. So it's these things that are understood in the art form that move you through the art form in the right way. So you've got to come in also to where your technique is at, right? If some of you have never taken a ballet class and then you come to my intermediate ballet class, you're going to feel like I threw you into the deep end of the pool, right? So that's not the technique for you. You have to go to the technique where your place is at. And that technique will help build you up in the right way. So you can have the talent, but understanding that the technique is going to help you build that talent is really important. Being able to work through something for months and months and months and months is technique. It's not just something that happens right away, right? So technique is that time and effort building up on what you already have. And the talent will grow within the technique. Does that make sense? The differentiation between the two and what we see. And so, right, talking about applying technique, it's never going to be perfect, ever. The first time that you do something, right, like when I work with the 4-year-olds, if they do something, they go, that's it, I'm done. Tap me out, Miss Hannah. And I'm like, is this the first time you tried something? And they're like, yeah. Like, okay, well, do we get things on the first try? And we have to have that conversation. And I think that we forget that as grownups, that we have to try things multiple times. We forget that. And so as soon as, or we joke with Musa, he draws a circle and I'm like, I can never draw a circle like that. And he goes, have you tried? I'm like, no, right? So as you start to move through that process, you have to understand there's going to be ebbs and flows. It's just part of the creative process of understanding how to apply the difference between the two. It's going to go up and down. There's going to be great weeks and there's going to be hard weeks and you're going to feel frustrated. And then next week it's going to click. So you have to be comfortable with having that conversation with yourself. Where's my technique? Where's my talent? What do I need to pull into right now? What's going to open it up for me? But I think Ron has been saying this with me, like he started coming to me and he goes, I'm getting out of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And that's huge because as artists, we're already so vulnerable. And then as adults, we're vulnerable, right? We have all of these things in our head that we're like, well, I'm not going to put myself out there. Especially I feel like with movement, people are like, I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want people to think that I don't know what I'm doing. As soon as I leave the room, they're going to talk about me.
Acting too. Totally.
And guess what? Everybody's worried about themselves. They're not worried about you. Everybody's worried about what they look like, not what you're doing, right? Yeah. So once we let go of that and we jump into the comfort zone and we're all on the same page of understanding that we're balancing this application of technique to raise talent, we're all in the same place of making art. Yes. And then that's when all of the fun stuff happens. That's when all of the good stuff starts to come out. So just understand that, like, even though you may not have this talent that is fully bloomed and realized, yeah. The technique is there to help you. And that's why Kerri and I do things multiple weeks in a row. That's why my classes are structured for 3 months. because it takes you that long to get the concept, understand it, put it in your body, know what the name of it is, how it applies on good days and bad days. You have to have that amount of time with something in order to understand it. But then at the end of that 3 months, your talent is going to be completely different.
I wanted to add on that too, going back to a little bit of the talent and applying the technique. Talent, I don't believe as an art teacher goes away as we age. I think that's always in us, right? Like we just talked about it. We can think about things that we did as a child that was there, that yearning to do. And maybe it was creative and maybe it wasn't, maybe it was sports oriented, right? The thing that is going to change is the vessel at which we get that talent out. As we age, that might be something that we have to reassess, right? I get this question a lot about memorization in acting classes. Memorization is hard at any age. Let me just say that. I really believe it's hard at any age, especially when you're acting. And those of you that have studied acting with me, you know that acting is not the simple task of getting a script and memorizing your lines. That's what we think from the outside world when we watch a movie, but that's not true. There's technique that goes into it. There's rehearsal. There's layers to the character. The characters are never one-dimensional. If they are, they're not going to be fun to watch and engaging, right? So we're practicing these skill sets, right? Memorization is one of those skill sets that we have to practice at any age, right? And Hannah and I were talking about the other day. It is like, something that you have to do to keep it working, to keep it using that part of the brain, right? So at any point you're doing that, right? With talent, it's the same thing. As we age, we just have to feel what technique is going to help us pull the talent out now. Okay, maybe when I was at this point in my life, the method technique really worked well for me. But then I got to this other point and Meisner's repetition worked really well for me. And I'm using technique terms in the acting world, but we can apply, there's not just a one size fits all with technique or even just in a timeline in our lives, right? It's what's going to work to help get the art out that we're thinking about constantly. And technique gives us that ability to say that when our talent isn't enough, right? When we need something else to help us pull that talent out, then we go to that technique. The other thing I wanted to say about the applying a technique to your talent is that you all have a unique instrument, right? Every one of us has our own instrument when it comes to dance and when it comes to acting specifically, right? This isn't a music class where we're all getting the clarinet, right? But when it comes to creating the art form, we have different variations of how we do it. I would say that every clarinet player is different, right? With the way they approach their music, right? With dance, every dancer is different. Every actor is different. We all have a unique instrument. We all have a unique instrument that we're applying technique to. We all have a unique instrument that's coming with a certain level of talent in the area that we're studying, right? And then we're applying the technique to that. So it's really one of those things in art where it's an individualized experience.
But you're made out to believe that it's not.
Exactly.
Right? Like we talk about this in dance a lot. Like when you think of a ballerina, you think of somebody this big with legs this long and a neck this long. And that's just not, that's like 2.5% of the population, right? It's just not, it's not reality. So we're made to believe that technique puts people into this box, and Kerri and I really we want to disregard that.
Yeah.
That the technique, you fit the technique to you. You don't make yourself fit the technique. You make the technique for what you already have. Does that make sense? So don't put yourself into the box of something. Make it work for you. What are your strengths, right? One thing I use, I don't know if anybody's familiar with a SWOT analysis from like business school 1,000 years ago, right? It's like what businesses use to think about, like if I'm selling a bakery and I want to beat the other bakery, I use a SWOT analysis: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? So if we think about that, instead of threats, we think about talent. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What opportunities do you have, right? What opportunities are available to you? Like you guys, frankly, coming here and sitting in this class hopefully opens up something for you. That's an opportunity that you took, right? What talent do you have? So now I know that my natural talent is whatever, like being able, like my natural talent, I would say, is moving very sequentially. I move like a jellyfish. That's my favorite thing to do. You can tell when I move. But now I know that my weakness is sharper or more strong movement. So what do I need to do to train to activate that part and then build on it, right? I already know what I have, but now I can analyze using technique. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What opportunities do I have to make those weaknesses my strengths? Does that make sense? Hopefully. The last thing that we want to say before we move into letting you guys chat is when you are working, right, we are mainly working as a group. Sometimes you do have individual time, like if you have a one-on-one with a coach, but most of the time we're in classes with other people, right? And it is a community. You see each other, you're working on the same things together, you're grumbling. In particular, my students grumble when I say one more time because they know it's not one more time, it's two more times. But when you're working together, it's really important. There's a difference between saying, hey, can we work through this together? And your foot needs to be pointed more on that glissade. It's not looking like a glissade, Kerri. Yeah. So talking about with each other in that, we don't, the same way that Kerri talked about getting shut down, the way that you communicate with your others and other artists, we recommend to not give other people notes. Because what we do as teachers, or what we try to do, is do it in that encouraging way of saying, you're not doing it wrong, but here's how we can, again, apply technique, because we know the technique, to make it better. Versus somebody coming up and being like, Camille, the read on your monologue was like really sad, and I think you should be happy, right? Like, you probably might not be kind of like, where is she coming from with this? Like, right? What does she know about it? So just be aware that when you're communicating with other people that you can you can chat with each other about what you're exploring, but it's different than like when Kerri gives feedback, like during your monologues, right? Like in acting for camera.
The reason that we say that is because that can squash talent,
right?
And it can squash people's desire to pursue their talent. If you come into a class and someone that you're in class with is saying, you're doing this wrong, or you should do it like this, right away, you're going to go, I don't know what I'm doing. They're telling me something else. I'll be right with you because I see you got, give me 1 second. And so then when that happens, it shuts down the instrument, right? The last thing I want to say, and then we're going to open it up to discussion here, is I always like to share this with my acting classes, is I like to think of as an artist that we kind of come in with our tool belt, right? So we've got natural ability and talent is automatically in our tool belt. It's something that we, like I said, we're born with it. It's there. Like Hannah said, we identify what our level is of it, right? In the art form that we're exploring. Then we're going to apply our techniques. Every technique we learn gets put into the tool belt, right? It just gets put. You learn a technique, you put it in the tool belt. Maybe the technique works for you, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's how to help your talent out at this stage in life where you're at. Maybe it's not, right? Maybe it works for Camille, right? But Panina doesn't work for her, and they do different ones here. Those all go in there and you pull out what you need. Techniques are also there when our natural abilities might fail us, right? Sometimes actors, they have a natural ability on stage. They're there, they're in it, they're in the circumstances of the play, and all of a sudden they think about their grocery list. And they're like, what's happening right now? I'm in the play, right? And then they do something that gets them back, a movement that gets them back into it, something that they pull from their tool belt, right? And so when they all work together like that, your instrument grows. Talent isn't something that we can teach. We can't teach talent. We can teach technique and help it with the instrument that you have and the talent that you have. We identify when you all come in what you've got. And then we as teachers,
we see the opportunity
right, to put the technique in to pull more of the talent out, right, or to grow the talent within all of you. But it's individualized, just to point that out again. It's not a group thing. We're not looking at all of you in that same way. Okay, it's beginner acting. Everyone's coming in with the same beginner level. That's not true. Every artist is different, and we're looking at that. So when you have an understanding of your instrument and your talent, right? That's something that's even greater for us because we see that understanding too. And then we can work with it even more so.
Yeah.
Excellent. So should we open it up for discussion? Camille, I saw your hand go up.
I just wanted to, the question was about, so you're saying that when you're in a class with other people, you shouldn't be telling, that it's okay for the teacher to do that? Is that what you were saying?
The teacher is going to give direction,
Right.
on the class. So if the teacher sees a movement, in dance that needs to be adjusted, or if I see something as the acting teacher that I want the actor to try.
That's your job.
That's our job as a teacher in the class setting, right? I would allow, and again, you all can choose what you want to do, right? This is just our opinion. Yeah, that's okay. This is just what we're coming to you from our training and thought and process with this, right? But for us, we prefer to have the teacher give us that feedback, right? Then have another student come in and adjust it.
And there's a difference between giving feedback and giving a compliment.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Recognizing what somebody did and saying a positive compliment is a lot different. Like for me, I would be nervous about somebody else giving feedback on something that has to do with the physical body because there's injury involved. So you coming up, like Ron coming up and telling you how to actually stand on releve, I have a problem with that.
Yes.
Because that could be a suggestion that is not correct for what I already know about you because I've spent a lot of time with you as a dancer. Does that make sense? So it's about also too recognizing that Kerri and I, we know we have a way that we want to encourage the direction for it to go in the right way. So you feel uplifted leaving class, not.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would even point out too, a lot of times in art forms and performance art, we're made to feel like we have to get validation, right? We go up on a stage, we need that applause. If we don't get the applause, what does that mean? If we don't get the laugh, what does that mean? I always talk about this. In a comedy, every time you do a show, the audience is going to laugh at different points in the play. It is never the same point in the play, right? Sometimes it is. There's a line that always gets a laugh. But I have actors come to me all the time saying, I don't know why they didn't laugh at it. In rehearsal, everybody was laughing. Because the audiences are all different that you're performing for. I think what's better for artists is to find validation within ourselves, right? I personally don't like talking to people after a show. I just want to be in that moment, let that play go for the day, just have that moment to kind of reflect on my own stuff. When you have all these people coming in, that was great, that was great, that was great. Well, okay, that's great. And again, it's nice to hear those things. But I, as the artist, want you to feel it. I want you to feel it was great. I want you to step off the stage and say, oh my God, I had so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
That felt so good. We see that when we do open classes or performances. One of the things Hannah and I love the most is that it's not so much at how well everyone did. It's that you came off the stage so happy to have done it. Right? Or so proud of what you gave that day. And it will never be perfect. Every performance will never be perfect. It's not meant to be. Art is meant to be continually be able to grow and change, right? You can approach something. This is why I love acting. You can approach a character at one point in life and then come back to that character after some more life experiences. And all of a sudden it's a different character. Acting is one of those things that you get better with age. It's true.
Same with movement.
And with movement, right? You get better with age. So unfortunately in society, we see that we get shut out because of age in acting and in dance, which is a shame because we get better with it. And I know that Hannah and I both are very big proponents of promoting this idea that we cannot get shut out as we age in the arts, because this is the time our art should be shown and our talent is thriving and our techniques are on point. So any other questions?
On Zoom.
Yeah. Pam.
Yeah,
I mean,
hi. Kerri, before when you started to talk about memorization and you said it's hard at any age, but can you still thrive? I mean, I think the answer is yes from being in your classes. Can you still thrive doing acting even if you have trouble with memorization?
Yes. I don't ever, yeah, Pam, thank you for bringing it up. Don't ever say you can't act because you can't memorize. I will tell you something, as an acting teacher, I prefer when people come in on book with text and have an understanding of the character and have a connection to the text than if it's memorized and it's being recited robotically. That's not acting. Memorizing text and reciting it robotically is not, I don't want to watch that. I want to see someone come in with text, then they're connected to it. They have an understanding who the character is. So yeah, if you, and I would say this too with the whole memorization, give yourself a challenge every once in a while. I did that in an acting class that I do privately, or I did, and I gave myself a big monologue. And I said, I know that I'm nervous about memorizing this whole thing, but I'm going to try to do it. And I took it bit by bit, and I spent 2 weeks on a section, and I spent 2 weeks on another section. Give yourself a challenge. Start small. Just say, I want to memorize 5 lines of text. And see if you can bring it in during the daily routine. When you wash dishes, when you unpack groceries, right? When you brush your teeth in the morning. The daily routines that we do, bring in the text. You don't even have to add anything to it. If you're an actor, maybe you're delivering it the way that you've been exploring it. That's great. But you could also just deliver it to see if you have it memorized. Give yourself those little challenges to see before we say we can't. You know what I mean? Give it a try. A lot of times in acting, people are scared to let go of the script, and then I pull the script out of their hand and they know the lines. That's true for a lot of actors at all different ages. We all wanted to be held that, no, I can't let go. No, okay. Right?
Oh yeah, my dancers, as soon as I stop moving, they stop moving.
Yeah.
So it's also too having that confidence of understanding, like, I would much rather watch you mess up and have a good time than be stiff as hell.
Yeah.
And just not living. Like, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I always say the difference, right? Between what you would want to pay, if you pay $100 at Lincoln Center, you want to see some movement, you want to see some quality. And if people go out there and they do things technically correct, you're going to be bored to tears because it's just technical.
Yeah. And there's no feeling in it. And I think with the art form, that's
So
what
we don't really care about memorization.
No.
You're going to memorize part of it no matter what. It's going to be there. But as long as you start to, it's the getting in front of yourself, getting out in front of yourself.
And there's techniques we can use too, right? I use a lot of improv in my classes, right? So if you're trying to memorize a monologue, you might have a few lines of it, then improvise it. I want to see that you know the story that the character is telling and you have a connection to the text. I don't care if the text is right. We're not going up on the Broadway stage to perform it. We don't have the rights to the show. That's a different story, right? When we go out professionally, we do it. There is this level that we have to be held to where it is memorized and we are doing the playwright's lines as written. Right? But when we're in a process of learning an art form, that's where we grow. We grow by letting go of this idea that we've got to get the text right away. For some actors, they do want to get the text in right? Some actors will say, no, I have to memorize first. That's okay. If that instrument works for you, if your instrument is able to memorize first like that, then by all means do that. But for a lot of us, that's not where our instruments are. Right? And so what do we do? How do we still use this art form and still get to that place ultimately at the end? Yeah, Camille.
No, I was going to say about memorizing, it's really the ideas that you're having that you need to know, and then the words will come. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your intention, whatever that intent on each line.
If you're connected to a character, what you'll see in acting is you'll get the line. Even if you think you don't have it, you'll get a part of it or you'll get something in it. If you're just thinking, if you're an actor and you're on stage and you're just thinking, what's my next line? Okay, that was the cue line from Ron. What's my next line? You won't get it. You're going to drop your line. But if you're just invested in listening, if I'm really looking at Panina when she's giving me a line and I'm really listening, my line's going to come. It's much easier that route, right? And I'm not stuck in my head going, okay, after Panina says this, I say this. I'm just listening as the character.
You're responding to whatever that person is.
Exactly. Yes. And there is technique, right? We have to practice the techniques. We have to practice this. This isn't something we just snap our fingers and do. I always joke, but like, I love Viola Davis and I love Meryl Streep. They practice technique too. I love listening to Viola talk about techniques that she used or things that she's worked on. So yeah, even the great ones out there, artists, they're using techniques to help. To grow in their talent, to grow in their confidence, to grow in that ability. Any other Zoom questions? Or any comments? Or anyone else in the room here? Helen, yeah, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Um, your talk has been so exciting and so stimulating that I've responded internally and just with my pencil, jotting down notes. So if you don't mind, maybe I could just jump around. Do you mind?
No, go for it.
I heard what you said, Kerri, about digesting the play, and you've given me a new opportunity. I never do that. Let's just say I go to a play with a group of 4 people. We call it our private theater club, and we go with Jose, who's Colombian. He always wants to talk because he misses a lot of English. And I always want to talk because I miss a lot because I just lose focus. And then there's the opportunity for Anna. She likes to be the teacher. She'll express herself and explain it. And then there's the 4th person. And then you brought us back to our childhood. And I knew immediately what I was drawn to. You said, well, I'm going to give you time to think about it. And of course, I'm thinking about it. Why was I drawn to it? And then there was a little self-criticism. I had the intention to read books, and I would get a book and read 10 pages. And then not finish the book because I really wasn't drawn to books and I'm not drawn to TV, but I know what I'm drawn to. I'm drawn to playing because I played in the streets in the Bronx with twin brother Alan, and boys like to be active and they like to play. So I was part of that group. So I really appreciated that question because I never thought of it. And so when Kerri offered classes in 2017, I said, improv, I like improv. That's like playing. I was never interested in monologues or acting because I'm just so conscious of my hoarse voice. And if I think about it, I'll get hoarse. So, my whole theory about dance. I took Hannah's class once on Zoom and I said, this Hannah is fabulous. I love the way she moves. And then my thought was, I move slow. I'm a senior. I can't keep up that pace. And of course, it's the whole concept of doing homework and growing. I should know about that. I was a teacher, and all my thoughts about drawing, you gave me a lot to think about. But I just want to say one more thing, if it might, my whole concept of accepting. I just accept who I am. I never compete. I just think it has a lot to do with my twin brother development. We didn't compete. We didn't have sibling rivalry. We were all about doing things together and sharing. And of course, you can say I'm talking too much. What is my other thought? Because you really stimulated us. Yes, what I was drawn to was playing because I feel it was nonverbal. I'm going to laugh at myself because I don't like to talk. So thank you for stimulating us.
Of course. Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciated you all being here today, making time for this panel. We're very excited for the next 2 panels coming up. If you're interested in joining those, again, week 2 is the urge to compare and judge. Week 3 is keeping confident from here on out. If at any point any questions come up or you think of something from the panel, please feel free to check in with us. I know that a lot of you have our emails probably, and if not, if you want to get our email before you leave today, we can give the email. But if anything comes up that you want to check in with, or Hannah's going to put it in the chat box too, for those of you that are on Zoom. But thank you so much. Oh, sorry, Helen, I saw that about the door. I left it open because it will lock, and I didn't want people, if they needed to leave, to be
I truly understand that. But for me, your talk was cut off 3 times. I was wondering whether it was my connection, and I have to sit close to hear.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for being here. Hannah's got to run to teach. Thank you all. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thank you.
Thank you.